Have you ever stopped to think about what happens when a country that drives on the left meets one that drives on the right? Well, at the border between Macau and mainland China, this isn't just some thought experiment. It's a daily reality, and it's been solved by some incredible feats of engineering that are, really, a physical symbol of a very complex political idea. So let's get into it. In this explainer, we're going to look at the political principle that started this whole thing, the history that created the divide, the amazing engineering used to bridge it, the challenge it poses for actual drivers, and finally, what this unique border tells us about how infrastructure can become policy. All right, so first things first. To understand the roads, you have to understand the politics. The entire reason for this incredibly complex border crossing is built on a single foundational principle. And that principle is one country, two systems. You see, when Macau was handed over to China back in 1999, its constitution guaranteed that its way of life, everything from its economy to its legal system, would stay the same for 50 years. And yes, that explicitly includes which side of the road people drive on. So this is the core of it, a simple yet pretty profound incompatibility. Macau, just like its neighbor Hong Kong, has left-hand traffic. Mainland China has right-hand traffic. When these two systems meet at a border, you can't just have cars switch lanes at a stoplight. You need to engineer a real solution. But how did this difference even happen in the first place? Well, the answer is in a series of historical decisions and geopolitical shifts that basically sent these two neighbors down completely different paths, or in this case, different sides of the road. It's a pretty fascinating story, actually. Back in 1928, Macau's colonial ruler, Portugal, switched to driving on the right to match the rest of Europe. But they made an exception for Macau, mostly because it was right next to places like Hong Kong that drove on the left. Then, in 1946, China switched to the right. The real split happened in 1949, when the border closed, forcing Macau to get its left-hand drive cars and parts from the UK through Hong Kong. And all of that history got locked into place by the 1999 handover. And this table just lays it out so clearly. You can see how each place was shaped by different forces. Mainland China wanted to align with American standards, Portugal with Europe, and Hong Kong just kept its British colonial system. But Macau is the real outlier here, kept on the left not because of its colonial ruler, but because of its regional neighbors. So now that we have the political and historical context, we get to the really clever part, the engineering. I mean, how do you physically and, safely move thousands of cars a day from one side of the road to the other? The first big attempt to solve this puzzle at high speed was the Lotus Bridge. It opened right after the handover in 2000. It's this elegant, if maybe a little loopy, solution to a very, very tricky problem. Now, this is where it gets really cool. So picture this. A car driving from Macau on the left side of the bridge enters this series of intertwining loops on the mainland side. The whole thing is designed so that your lane physically passes over the lane for oncoming traffic. By the time you exit the loops, you are seamlessly placed on the right side of the road, ready to drive into mainland China. No wonder people call it the Flipper Bridge. That engineering idea was really put to the test on a much, much larger scale with a more recent project, the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge. It's a 55-kilometer-long behemoth, and it also needed a solution for connecting two left-hand drive places, Hong Kong and Macau, with the right-hand drive mainland. But the HSMB took a completely different approach. The main span of the bridge is technically in mainland waters, so everybody drives on the right. The magic happens at the very ends. On artificial islands built near Macau and Hong Kong, there are dedicated ramps that perform the crossover, moving cars from the right side of the bridge to the left side of the road. So you have two systems and two very different engineering philosophies to solve the same problem. Of course, all of this brilliant engineering doesn't mean a thing if the drivers themselves can't handle it. Crossing this border isn't just a physical trip, it's a mental one. It challenges years of ingrained habits and reflexes. I mean, think about it. So much of driving is just muscle memory. You instinctively know where to look, which lane to turn into, where the other cars are supposed to be. And then suddenly, every single one of those rules is reversed. It creates a huge cognitive load, where drivers have to consciously fight their own instincts just to stay safe. And it's not just which side of the road you're on. As you can see here, pretty much everything about the visual language of driving changes too. In Macau, the signs follow Portuguese standards, using traditional Chinese and Portuguese. The second you cross the border, you're faced with mainland China signs, which have different colors, different borders, and use simplified Chinese. A driver has to process all of that in real time. But here's the thing. Despite all these challenges, people are clearly adapting. A new program launched in 2023 that lets Macau'S travel into the neighboring province, and the numbers have been just staggering. We're talking over 2 million crossings at the HDMB port alone. This huge surge shows that the economic and social benefits are just really powerful motivators, encouraging more and more people to take on that cognitive challenge. So let's zoom out. How does Macau's situation really compare on a global scale? Are there other places like this? The answer is yes, but they are incredibly rare. And Macau's reason for being this way is completely unique. There are only a handful of other land borders in the world that manage this left-to-right switch. The bridge between Guyana and Brazil has a crossover that's pretty similar to the Lotus Bridge. The Thai-Lao Friendship Bridge uses a much simpler traffic light system. And the Hong Kong-Shenzhen border actually has a special corridor where Hong Kong's left-hand traffic rules just extend into the mainland for a bit. And this really brings us to a fundamental question. If it's so complicated and so expensive to build these transitions, why even do it? Why don't more places have them? And here it is, the core reason. It all comes down to politics and law. Most countries that bordered nations with different driving sites, like Sweden, for example, eventually just switched to match their neighbors. It was better for the economy, it was safer. But Macau and Hong Kong, they can't. Their right to drive on the left is constitutionally protected by an international agreement. It isn't just a traffic rule, it's a pillar of their autonomy. This quote just captures the essence of it all perfectly. The bridge isn't just concrete and steel, it's a metaphor. Its complex, carefully engineered path is the physical embodiment of the one country, two systems policy. It's an elaborate structure designed to connect two different worlds while making sure they don't collide. And that leaves us with one final thought to ponder. As Macau and the mainland become more and more integrated, both economically and socially, what happens to these physical markers of difference? Will these incredible bridges one day just be seen as relics of a transitional time? Or will they remain the permanent, engineered guardians of Macau's unique identity?